Pecha Kucha 38, new sketchbook, and Frank Miller. So I'm edging ever closer to being off of the course. The summer show is the only thing between me and being whatever it is that I'm going to be for the next 6 months to the end of my life. So I was called into university to discuss that show. It turned out to be a waste of time, 45 seconds to be precise. But I decided I was going to start a new sketchbook. Grabbed a pencil, decided to just date it so I knew what it was with the cover. Did a little smiley pencil drawing on the front, and then I inked it because this thing's going to be in my bag and stuff. It's going to get smudged, and also to help clarity and stuff, and because my brush pen is awesome. So just using a fine liner in my brush pen, I was trying to get a sense of a clear sense of all of the shapes and stuff. So now the pencils have come off. Yeah, I don't do an awful lot of work on paper regularly, and I'm missing my transform tool. Vegeta was supposed to be a little bit smaller. Bison was supposed to have two hands. It's all these little things that are like really easy to correct when you have those kind of digital options. I add a little black outline to Bison at the top and did his eyes. Drawing the eye to where you want it to be and like watching the balance of the composition. And I also blacked in the hair and Smiley's arms. So that's kind of where it is, and I'm kind of happy with that. Yeah, so I watch YouTube. I was watching Alien vs Predator. Nostalgia Critic was talking about that, so I've definitely got Predator on the mind. I've been a long-term. I'm a science fiction fan, and Predator is one of my favorite science fiction movies. It's one of those things. It doesn't really matter if it's good. I know I like it because when you see it as a kid, it's special. So first sketchbook page, I'm like, let's just do a little Predator close-up thing. Started it on the bus. Just trying to do stuff so I've got something to show in the Pecha Kucha. That's kind of the purpose of this Pecha Kucha, to keep me working, and it's definitely helped me this week. So I had a little look at reference, and it turned out like my raw construction was kind of not really to the head shape of a predator. It's the helmets tend to be a lot wider and maybe a bit shorter, not as tall. I was also trying to use like pencil work to kind of define like shapes through. I don't know. I call it through grain. So like I try to follow the curves of things with like pencil marks to give a better sense of the overall 3D aesthetics of the thing. I also had a little bit of a look at leaves and stuff there. So that's as far as I took that. I got my brush pen out and tried to do some kind of chiaroscuro, heavy blacks imagery. In the original Predator, the guy in the suit used a bit of African tribal dance to consider his movements, and like I really like that stuff, and I want to try and represent it. A friend of mine was really trying to get me to read like Frank Miller's third like Batman installment, like set in the future, called The Master Race. He even went so far as to kind of give me a link to see the stuff for free online. So I read it. I didn't have anything better to do. Frank Miller is a very polarizing character in the comic book industry. The work he did with Daredevil on the 80s, bringing Catholic guilt into it. The work he did in the 80s with Batman, and the work he did in the 90s in Sin City. He's done really good stuff, critically acclaimed stuff. He's also done really bad stuff. So Frank Miller's first Batman, The Dark Knight Returns book, originally published in the 80s, might actually be the reason we have Batman as this kind of dark, serious character. It might have been the seminal work that moved us out of that kind of 60s camp thing. I could be wrong, but I get that impression. The follow-up to this, The Dark Knight Strikes Again, isn't as good. It turns out some people have stronger opinions about that and think it's terrible. So those both happened a long time ago, and now this third one is quite recent. The Master Race are Kryptonians. The bottled city of Kandor is opened by the Atom. I hope that's his name. I don't really care if it isn't. A lot of the Kryptonians have been kind of taken over by this cult, who now intend to screw up Earth, and hilarity ensues. Frank Miller writes the whole thing, but he does not draw it. His art style is aped by various artists, including Adam Kubert, who is, I think, basically doing the main comics. Every comic has a mini comic, which is kind of deals with one particular character in Frank Miller's sort of mini universe. This is the work of Eduardo Riso, I believe, which he does a pretty strong job of like aping Miller's style without kind of overly committing to the clumsiness of it. Like, this is actually Frank Miller's work for one of the mini comics, and it's like, it's not his best, let's put it that way. I look at the bottom panel and those faces and I think, what is going on? Sometimes like inaccurate art has a charm of its own, but yeah, not usually Miller's. Yeah, something that's weird about the comics is they tend to have these covers done by other artists that seem to be based on the previous two books. So this is like Jim Lee with Robin Carey, although she doesn't wear that costume in the entire third, book series. It's just a weird thing I've noticed. It's weird. Usually, when a trade paperback has comic book covers, they are of the comic book in question, not the one before, not the series before. Right, so, what do I need to do? I need to do it, come on! Like I said, Predator on the brain this week. Probably Predator on the brain this month. Now it's on my radar again. It's probably not going to go away. So I've just got to set up a little structure to my days. That the Pecha Kucha is the backbone of that, and I just got to build out of it. Do some work. Start promoting it. Come on, do it. That's what we're going to do. So that brings us to the end of Pecha Kucha 38, and I will see you next time.